it to me, it doesn't feel like there is like the championship is like unattainable. I remember even reading reports in like 2017, 2018, like the peak of those KD on the Warrior years. People were saying like, well, front office, don't want to compete this year, or they want to delay competing 2 or 3 years down the lines because they just know they won't win the championship this year. Like, I don't think there probably is like 15 teams in the NBA that are not operating with that sort of mindset right now. And I think the Raptors are firmly one of them. So I guess Asad, I wanted to ask you, like, how far are the Raptors away from contending?
Yeah, I don't think they're that far away from contending at all. And again, this could all be like all these points could be moot at like by the end of the day if Kyrie Irving decides to sign for $6 million with some super team. Because okay, that
why would he do that,
happened.
man? Why
But
would
like,
he do that? Don't do that.
who
Kyrie.
knows, right? Again, like if like that's the reporting that you're getting is that the Nets are ready to lose both Kyrie and KD, then it's like, well, now you're looking at potentially like some real changes in the league. But okay, apart from that, if you just look at kind of what the league has been this year and the last few years, especially since Kevin Durant left the Warriors, because we all know KD on the Warriors was a super team that was created from this CBA glitch that created this incredible amount of cap space at a time that he was available, right? But since he's left, and since Kawhi left Toronto, to be honest as well, it created this kind of vacuum in the league where there is no super team and there's no way to create a super team just because of how restricted the cap is and how the teams are built. So you have a lot of parity around the league, and not just a lot of parity, but when you look at the top teams in the league, and I like focusing on the East specifically because that's Toronto's path to contention.
Yep.
But the top teams in the East, it's the same culprits every year, right? You have Boston, you have Miami, you have Milwaukee, you have Philadelphia, and then Toronto. Those are the 5 franchises that have always been at the top of this conference for the last 4 or 5 years, and are going to continue to be because they're all, we can make jokes about all of them, but they're all competently run in terms of being competitive, right? Of course, Philadelphia doesn't have to be as competently run because they have a superstar. The Bucks as well, they can screw up a little bit as well because they have Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? But all these teams, when you look at their rosters, and I feel like there's a lot of negativity when the people look at the Raptors rosters, like, oh, we don't have that number one guy. But I would argue that we do have a number one guy. Pascal Siakam was incredible this past season. And again, if he continues playing like he did last season, especially near the end of last season, he's a bona fide number one guy in this league. And, it's just, people don't like crowning anybody until they do something. So, we'll just have to wait and see for that. But he's been great. He's been awesome. He's an awesome number one dude. He's an awesome offensive engine to build your team around. But for every one of these other teams I mentioned, when you look at them, they're all built the same, especially 3 of them. The Bucks, the Heat, the Celtics, they all play switch-heavy defenses. The Bucks, they'll throw in some drop as well because they have Brook Lopez, but they all end up going to these switch-heavy defenses in the playoffs. They work by relying on their defense to create turnovers and create stops, and then they kind of just make it work on offense as best as they can.
Yeah.
None of these teams are top-tier offensive teams. And come playoff time, that's what works, is you have 5 or 6 guys that you can trust to go out there and defend everybody. And I mean everybody.
Yep.
And if you get lucky enough with the health and you get lucky enough with the matchups, you're in the finals, right?
That's Boston.
All 3 of those teams hit the finals. The Raptors being the 4th team. Like, I asked 4 teams to hit the finals are those 4 teams. And in each of their cases, you can make a case like, if you wanted to be negative about it, you can make a case saying, oh, they got lucky to be there, right? They got this health or this health. But that's just how the playoffs work every year. And I think that's kind of where the Raptors are. They're very close. They've got 6 guys, but none of these teams have much depth. And it's really going to come down to which team has the best depth to survive in the playoffs. And the Raptors are like right there. I think we saw last year, last year's Raptors won 48 games, but it was like 2 different seasons, right? At the beginning of the season, you had the Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, and Scotty Barnes learning how to play basketball, and Precious Achiuwa learning how to play basketball for the first time, like in a Raptors uniform. Just scrounging out wins. And the second half of the season, you had Pascal Siakam returning to form while the rest of the guys kind of got injured. And they cobbled together this 48-win season. There's no question that if you have healthy Fred and healthy Pascal actually getting a chance to play with each other with the seasons that they were having when they were healthy last year, there is a lot of upside there. If you see just baseline improvement with Scotty Barnes, with Precious Achiuwa, where they're playing more consistently game to game, right? If you can trust Precious Achiuwa to have a good game 4 out of 5 games, if you can, get Scotty Barnes to just keep getting better, like the Scotty Barnes we got in the second half of the season was incredible. Just that guy for a whole season is a big boon to your system, right? And then you just get good health, where instead of losing 2 or 3 guys out of your starting lineup for long stretches, you're only missing one. The Raptors suddenly have like a 6-7 man group that they can rely on for the majority of the season. So there's no reason why this team can't be competitive next year, and especially with just some depth improvements to kind of shore some stuff up, and just internal growth, why this team can't be making the same type of finals run that the Celtics made this year, for this year or next year, right? So I think these next 2 years are going to show a lot of what this team's kind of capable of, but they're very close. Like, there's no question that they're very close. Uh, and it's just a matter of, when you kind of look at it from the outside and just look at the numbers and look at, all right, the 48-win team lost in the first round in 6 games.
Mhm.
Oh, well, how do you improve the team? It's like, well, it's like everybody on this team is on a value plus contract, except for maybe Pascal's paid par for what his skills are. And everybody's on the young side of their age curve. There's like growth. Like, name one guy on the roster who isn't expected to be better next season, like,
Yeah,
just from
it's basically
internal growth.
like that, and maybe Kem Birch. And
Yeah,
even Kem, like, he had a really injury-prone season. A healthy Kem's got to be better than what he did this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where it's just like, okay, there's a lot of promise on this team, and I think we're actually a lot closer to contention. Like, if Atlanta can make an Eastern Conference Finals run off of just like, a hot Trae Young and their young guys kind of hitting with a couple veterans last season,
Mhm.
I don't think Toronto's that far from that being kind of their baseline expectation every year.